The annual civic parade in the Stanley Urban District near Wakefield, a familiar scene in April all over the country as civic heads begin their year in office. But this year in Stanley, there's a difference. It's not the civic dignitaries who occupy the place of honour behind the band, but a mines rescue team. For within the urban district lies Lofthouse Gate, and the colliery where 10 days before 7 men had lost their lives on face south 9B.
I was just going up the road to go to Wakefield to pick my granddaughter up, and a man stopped me halfway up Coach Road and told me. He said one of the eggs, but he didn't say which one or what shift it had happened on. I just heard it was one of eggs, and of course you sort of panic and go numb.
The emergency started early this morning when a powerful surge of water burst through a coal face where 30 men were working. Most of the miners managed to force their way through shoulder-deep water and escape, but 7 miners are missing.
During the next 6 days, newsmen followed the frantic activities of the workers to reach their mates by every means, in the faint hope that some of them might be alive, trapped in an air pocket. Pumps and miles of pipe brought in and sent down the shaft to reclaim the inundated area, but it was still very slow work, and there was little friends and relatives on the surface could do but wait. 3 on the pit head, almost directly over the heads of the trapped men, 3 mysterious holes had appeared in farmland ploughed only the day before, and this was in an area riddled with old mine workings. Meanwhile, surveyors fixed a point on the surface, estimated to be directly above the entombed men. A drilling rig was caught and set up with the aid of gangs of miners. By day 2, the rig's 12-inch bit had been put to work, cutting down through the 730 feet which separated it from the coal face below. Apart from snatching a few hours nearby houses, the drill crew paused only to down drink hot meals brought onto the site for them by local housewives. In an effort to plug the disused mine shafts, a fleet of lorries brought tons of clay, straw and rubble to the end of a conveyor. This, it was hoped, would stop any further flow of water into the devastated area below. Apart from the highly trained rescue teams who came in from all over the surrounding coalfields, dozens of ordinary miners provided the vital backup to the rescue operation. That the coal board's own team of frogmen arrived from their base in Staffordshire. Instead of a final training session at Hensford, this newly formed divers had its first real job to do Lofthouse. On day 3, the water level continued to fall, although the sticky mixture of water and coal hindered progress. Rescue teams continued to come and go, but by now the life expectancy of any miners trapped below in an air pocket had been exceeded by several hours. On day 4 of the emergency, the rescuers decided that attempts to pump away the floodwater were going too slowly. They devised an ingenious plan. 2-man teams were set to work tunneling towards the air pocket above the flooded roadway, carving with air picks a 2-foot by 3-foot passage through the solid rock above the steel arches of the old tunnel. They worked for 12-hour shifts up to their shoulders in water. They promised 4 yards an hour. Incredibly, they managed 3. One man was Sid Haig, and on day 5 he spent his 58th birthday tunneling toward his trapped son. On the surface, the drilling head is still driving its way down toward the trapped men. Though work was begun on the borehole as a secondary line of attack, it's now thought the drill may reach the air pockets. On day 6, it's one of Lofthouse's own rescue teams that makes the breakthrough. They wade through chin-high water into the area of the supposed air pocket. 100 yards further on, they find the roadway blocked again, the area empty. There has been, but no one has breathed it. Shortly after midday, one body is found, and at a press conference, the NCB senior executive on the spot, Norman Siddall, explains there's now no reasonable hope for the remaining 6 men.
It is obvious that the inrush was of great violence, and it is difficult to see how anybody could have survived after. I would like to pay tribute to the workmen and officials and management of this pit and indeed others who have helped, for the tremendous courage and tenacity they have displayed in attempting this rescue, which has unfortunately been aborted.
With all real hope for the miners gone, so was the possibility of dramatic developments hour by hour, press and tea pulling out. But as the operation changed from fevered attempts at rescue to the much slower process of recovery, the story for the community of Outwood was only now really beginning. And just in time before the world turned its back, the new chairman arrived to launch his council's appeal fund and submit himself to more accustomed indignities on behalf of his fellow Yorkshiremen.
Walking up past the colliery with some of the other miners.
Oh, I've got them organised. Yeah, we want them.
As chairman of Stanley Urban District Council, in whose area Lofthouse Colliery is situated, may I publicly express on behalf of the council our profound sympathy to the bereaved and our unfailing gratitude to those men who tried to rescue their colleagues. The breadwinners in 7 families are gone, and for this reason I am sponsoring a fund known as the Lofthouse Colliery Disaster Fund. I hope that you will all try and give whatever you can.
As the world moved on to other dramas, this tight-knit mining community was left to measure its own reaction to the tragedy. One who's lived in the area for many years and knows the miners well is the Bishop of Wakefield, Dr. Eric Tracy. How did he see the impact on the community at large?
I find it to be a quite numbing one. They find it very hard to focus on exactly what has happened and to realize that as they walked about in Wakefield doing their daily tasks as underground were 7 men whose fate was unknown, whose wives and families were waiting here in this canteen since last Wednesday to find out what happened. In a curious way, the sense of identity, not only with the men underground, but with their families, has affected an enormous number of people. I felt there's been a sort of cloud over Wakefield since last Wednesday.
3 miles away, the drilling rig waited to be dismantled. This first operation of its kind in Britain had in the end been in vain. The crew had worked long hours in an attempt to put mallet hole to the supposed air pocket, to be stopped short of their objective by news that the air pocket had been reached though and found empty.
Our managing director, I think he was moved nearly to tears, like, as they wasn't there, because all hopes had been pinned on finding them. But we would try any time, even again, you know, if we thought that there was someone trapped down below and we could do anything with our drilling machine to get down to them, we would do it again.
A group of local suburban housewives found themselves totally involved with the rescue operation. Why had they felt so personally concerned about the trapped miners?
I think we're human beings. Yeah.
And being
when
so close, actually being able to look out of the window and knowing probably that they're not so many feet, or couldn't perhaps be so many feet from underneath where you're standing. You know, they'd just been across the road.
How did the men on the drill react? News that the miners were probably dead.
Well, they were just quiet. They didn't say very much. They just went very quiet. We walked out of that tent and nobody spoke a word at all.
Now that it's all over, what would you say you've all learned about the mining industry?
Well, I think it's a dangerous industry. I don't think anybody quite realised how dangerous, you know.
They've a community of their own. I don't know, they're all friends. I don't know, they've a companionship. Yes. You know, probably like you'd get during the war.
It needs something like this, I think, to concentrate people's minds on what are the risks. When I go down, I crawl on my stomach to the coal face. I spend a few minutes talking to them, then I crawl out again. I go up to the top, have a bath, go home, and perhaps talk to somebody about my visits in the pit. I realize that those chaps are down there every single day of their lives, lying on their faces, hacking the coal out, breathing the filthy air, constantly aware of the fact that anything could go wrong, but thank God it goes wrong far less now than it did, although I'm told that there's about one miner every 5 days who loses his life in the pits in this country as a whole.
Statistics like that raise no eyebrows in Stanley Urban District. It's a community born of coal. North of Wakefield, it sits astride the main road to Leeds, a road much quieter than one took away the through traffic. Otherwise, at first sight, changed very little in recent years. Blocks of pre-council houses still fill the spaces between older rows of miners' cottages. But in Outwood, the area to the pit itself, signs are more obvious. Old cottages give way to modern bungalows for commuters to Leeds and Wakefield. But even in normal times, the pit makes its presence felt, looming over the smart gardens of the council estate. Stanley Urban District Council's official still makes it quite clear that mining is the main local industry, and in case anyone should forget, the seal on the chairman's chain of office is a constant reminder. But for the moment, no one seems in doubt. The entire staff at the council offices has come Saturday morning to tot up the response to the chairman's appeal, an appeal which is to raise £70,000 before the fund is officially.
Miss Pierre Flanagan, £3. VG Practice, £5.
Let us stand in silence to remember those who have died in Lofthouse Colliery. Let us remember the daily courage, comradeship and hard work of the mines. Let us remember thankfully the tremendous response of the miners who helped in the rescue attempt. O Lord of life, we remember in your presence those who have died in this tragedy. May we support their families in their grief and their loss. May we learn more about safety in the mines, that some good may come from this loss. May the courage and comradeship which has been shown bind us together into a loving and serving community, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Courage and comradeship are the rule among miners, but at the same time there's nothing sentimental about their sympathy. 10 days after the disaster, Sid Haig, who lost one of his 3 sons who work at Lofthouse in the disaster, talked about workmates' attitude.
Well, I don't know. I can't assess it because I'm always said that I'm a hard man, see. Hard man but a good gaffer, you know. I don't, when any of my lads get injured, I never show any sympathy. I don't ask for sympathy, and this is why they class me as a hard man, you see. And they only see what's on top when it happens to your own. They don't see what's underneath. They express sympathy, of course, which is a natural thing among miners.
Looking back on it, Sid, how would you